Okay, so welcome back to the second part. So the second part is not so much of Ryan's experience in Cambridge, but rather any tips for the interview process or what's the application process like. So actually it's pretty cool that you have been to both Oxford and Cambridge application process.
Yeah.
So maybe could you walk us through that? Because I don't think a lot of people know why this.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So first thing to note is that applications to the UK universities are all centralized in a system called UCAS.
Right.
I have no idea what it stands for, but
That's
UCAS.
Right.
So essentially, you make one centralized application to 5 universities of your choice. That consists of your grades, all that basic, banal administrative material.
Right.
And then you add your personal statement, which is about 4,000 characters, explaining why you want to do the subject generally, and maybe a bit of who you are, etc., etc. So that personal statement gets sent to all the universities that you apply for, and then the steps from there are university dependent. So if you apply to some of the London universities, I think LSE and UCL, and Oxford, you would need to do, at least for law, the LNETs, which I think is a national law admissions test thing. Basically, it's a verbal reasoning test, English reasoning test, and then essay aspect where you test your reasoning ability and stuff like that.
So it's nothing to do with law?
Yeah, that's definitely nothing to do with law. The test just examines your reasoning ability. Because chances are, if you reason well and you think clearly and decisively, that translates really well to pursuing a law degree. So those are some select universities require the LNETs, some don't. So King's College, for example, does not require the LNETs. So essentially, it's just your personal statement. If they like it, then you're in.
There's no interview?
No interview.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if you apply to Oxford and Cambridge, and I can't remember what other universities, I think Imperial as well. Imperial, of course, only for science and math-based subjects, stuff like that. Then there's an additional interview process.
Oh, okay. So it's not for every...
So it's not for every university, You see on LSE, for example, you don't need to interview.
It's just personal statement?
It's just a personal statement and then your LNET score. Do you score high enough? Yeah. But the interview process is very distinctive of the Oxford system. And also just to remind the viewers, you can only apply to either Oxford or Cambridge in one cycle. Because they're too similar of universities. I think historically they've always been rivals, but they're just way too similar. So you can only make your application to one, so just pick wisely. The interview process is fairly similar. Actually, let me just backtrack a bit. With Cambridge, even though you don't need to do the LNET, you do the Cambridge Law Test. Now that's only an essay-based test, but that's very law-related.
So you need to know.
You need to have some legal thinking, that you are familiar with.
Which you study yourself?
Yeah, I had to self-study. Like very basic stuff. For example, in criminal law, you are innocent until proven guilty.
Oh, I see.
Etc. If it's what does it mean if you are guilty? Yeah, and
like this basic stuff.
That's very basic. Almost common sense reasoning, but sharpened and articulated well, and it relates to law a bit. So that's how the Cambridge Law Test, I think, at least in my experience, works. Whereas in LNETs, it's like you do comprehension-based questions like MCQs, and then you do an essay that's on a very general topic. It can be like environment or religion or stuff like that. But then it just basically tests your reasoning ability. Makes I think it wants you to make an argument and then just stand your ground. But just imagine that the Cambridge Law Test is takes away the comprehension aspect, retains the essay aspect, but then tailors it towards a bit more law type stuff. There are some mock example questions that you can look up on the Cambridge Law Faculty website. I think it's there. So you do that, and then you get on to the interview process. Oxford doesn't interview everyone. They only interview candidates who do well enough on the LNETs.
So if you're not interviewed, you're kicked out.
You're basically rejected from
okay.
there. Yeah, you need to be invited to the interview. I think if that's how.
That's for Oxford and not Cambridge.
In Cambridge, everyone gets a chance to interview because your application is measured by your performance on the Cambridge Law Test, your personal statement, and your interview. So it's a lot more holistic of an assessment.
Yeah.
So the Cambridge Law interview, and I think to a certain extent the Oxford interview as well. Although I'll speak more towards the Cambridge side because that's where I actually succeeded. Both replicate what it would kind of be like in a supervision / tutorial.
Oh, that's interesting.
Like in the 101. So they will ask you a question, and then you just have to have an engaging back and forth discussion with them. I mean, it may not necessarily link to law, but chances are it will, because that's your degree that you're applying for. Yeah, but the common denominator is that you never have to know the law. You never need to know what the Sexual Offences Act 203 says. You never need to apply law. You just need to be able to reason like a law student.
So not really testing on the content, but rather like the soft skill.
It's kind of like the soft skills. So you need to think aloud.
Right.
You need to reason through an argument. You need to spot if your argument has flaws, you made a mistake, correct yourself, and then put yourself in a better position than you were before. And it needs to be like a back and forth discussion because that's how supervisions work anyway.
Yeah.
It's always a back and forth discussion with the supervisor. Yeah. So generally, the best way to describe it is just it's how you will be taught in university.
This is interesting.
Yeah. Your interview is basically a simulation of how you will be taught in university.
So I guess they're just trying to see like the cultural fit,
exactly.
Whether like you would fit in that class,
so first, like, they're looking for academic passion. Do you like the subject at all? Academic potential, and just whether you are fit. Like, will you thrive in the supervision system? Because it's not for everyone.
Yeah, definitely.
Some people like to just be in a seminar, just listen to a mini lecture. Yeah, but this place is really for you to be able to articulate your thoughts and then be challenged on those thoughts. Yeah, and then figure out how you can bounce back from maybe a counter argument. Stuff like that.
Okay. So do you have any like tips for that? Like, how do you prepare for it? What did you do on the day itself? That kind of thing.
So leading up to, I'll talk about like maybe the personal statement first, because that's your first step to getting in. Yeah. So for your personal statement, I think it's important to just find an area of law that interests you and just read around it. And then just keep in mind that criminal law is not all there is to law.
Yeah. Contrary to popular belief.
One of the things that admissions tutors always say is like, stop talking about criminal law. There's a lot more interesting aspects. I had an applicant, like one of the mentees that I mentored, she talked about transgender rights, for example.
In law.
So that links to a bit of human rights law, and equality law, for example. Another one wants to talk about euthanasia, so that's also inching towards human rights law, for example. Yeah, I know some of my peers talked about public law, so we call that constitutional law. So that's law that it's a bit entwined with politics because it talks about how the state organs are organized.
I see.
Like, there's a judiciary, executive, and legislature. Separation of powers.
Okay, I don't really understand, but
if you do a bit of political philosophy, that's how democratic governments tend to be organized. There's a parliament, there's a legislature, there's a lawmaking body. The executive is your government. That's whoever's sitting in the cabinet. Then there's your judiciary, based on your courts, and these three pillars of the constitution, if you will, make up public law. Yeah, so that's maybe another aspect you can look into. I personally looked into. I'm embarrassed to say about criminal law, but I looked at specifically at criminal justice theories and philosophies of punishment. So punishment can be, for me when I read up on it, it can be retributive or utilitarian. So retributive punishment looks to punish you because you did something wrong and you deserve it. Utilitarian philosophers punish wrongdoers because it is for the greater good. Because you will harm less people moving forward. So one's backward looking, one's forward looking, which is the right way. And there's a debate that still goes on today. So that's my angle. Some seniors, I remember one personal statement I read talked about the difference between military law and civilian law.
Wow.
Because he had experience in NS. So he was saying how some issues in law matter. So in military law, a lot of it is a matter of strict liability. So strict liability just means that you don't need to demonstrate any fault on your part. As long as you do something wrong without being mentally at fault, that's still wrong. So even if you're callous, too bad. But in issues in civilian law, there tends to be a fault element. There needs to be a bad mental element towards doing an act that makes you criminally or tortiously liable. So that's another angle you can explore. So the gist of that is find, I think, an area that would interest you and then just read around it. And
be focused.
I think it's good to be focused because if you do a scattergun approach, I mean that works. Scattergun approach works. Just shows that you like to do wide reading. But I think it's a lot easier for you if you just find a way to read around a topic of interest, and then in your personal statement share your thoughts about the topic of interest, because by you sharing your thoughts you're showing the admissions tutor that you are interested in the subject, you're passionate about it, and you have academic potential because you've engaged with the topic and you've offered your own thoughts. You're demonstrating your capacity for independent thinking. Right. So that's what you want to do. You want to show off your academic potential first and foremost in your personal statement. It's not so much, I'm a cultural fit because I've always studied international baccalaureate, so that means I know international systems. Blah, blah, blah. So that's they don't want to hear that. They want to see that you have academic potential, and that's best demonstrated if you can read effectively into an area and then just talk about it. Talk about why you liked it. Talk about what issues enthralled you and how you would approach those issues. How would you engage with that? So I can use my example. My hook was saying that I got very interested in punishment philosophies in law because I like comic book superheroes. So when I was watching Daredevil, which is on Netflix, I don't think it's on Netflix now because they took it down. But when I was watching Daredevil, Daredevil always came head to head with the Punisher, because Daredevil believed in putting criminals in jail so that they can come out redeemed. So that's utilitarian. Punisher like to just kill them because they deserved it and they're scum of the earth. That's retributivism. So that's backward looking. So I use that as the hook to draw into my interest in this area of law, which is like punishment philosophies. And then I talked about some of the academic articles that I read, and offer my own views of what was right, what was wrong.
So it's really like they're really trying to see whether you're personally interested also. And it doesn't have to be in everything. In fact, it's a lot more effective if you're interested in just one thing and you can talk about it confidently. Because chances are, once you write a personal statement, you are going to be tested on that in the interview. But because you've done so much preparation on that, you can be confident knowing you can talk about it enthusiastically. So that's compared
one
tactic.
Compared to the scattergun approach, because then you'll be like, if they go 1 inch deeper into that aspect, you just never had the time to read that far, then that does not work to your advantage at all. So being strategic in your personal statement will put you in good stead when you hit the interview stage. So that's generally my advice for personal statement writing. Find a topic that you're interested in and read widely around it. It can be from textbooks, but chances are I would avoid textbooks because that tends to be a bit too broad, too much. Try academic articles because those are shorter and usually on a much more niche issue. And that maybe can play to how you want to structure your personal statement, what you want to talk about.
Right.
Yeah. I don't recommend this, but I do implore you to maybe explore it a bit. But if you can access like actual judgments from any court, like be it Singaporean or the UK, but try to do UK because it's
because
UK.
you're applying there.
Yeah, and if you can digest the judgment and explain what they were saying there, then and how it fits to your interests and your point that you're making, that's also a really good way to demonstrate that you have academic interest and potential, because you're reading the primary texts that you will be looking at.
Yeah.
One of the primary texts, at least, you'll be looking at when you study law.
Right.
Yeah. Pro tip: if the judgments are a bit too long, chances are there's a blog somewhere that talks about the judgment, and you can just read the blog and it digests it for you. Yeah, that's how I've advised some of my mentees, because judgments can be really long.
Yeah.
And UK judges tend to be very verbose and long-winded.
So the guys
it take a while to
oh.
yeah, so it takes a while to just read through it. But sometimes if you read the blog, that might be it goes straight to the point.
That's indeed a rare pro tip.
Yeah, that's a pro tip. Yeah, so like constitutional law blog, there's something there. Human rights law blog, it exists. Just do some digging.
Right.
Yeah, so that's personal statements. So then there's the Cambridge Law Test, which is basically a way for you to demonstrate your capacity for legalistic thinking. So that's...
You mentioned it's an essay, right?
Yeah, it's an essay. So they'll give you an essay question, and then you have to basically argue your stance on the issue,
right.
which tends to be a legalistic issue. But it's never something too specific that you will have to have prior legal knowledge.
Right.
It's just something general, like something about the law in general.
Yeah.
But that does mean that you need to be aware of the basics of how law works, how law relates to everyday life, how law ties together wider society.
Right. So you still kind of need some preparation, just not
some preparation.
in depth.
Not super in depth. Yeah. So for that, I recommend this book called Letters to a Law Student by Nicholas McBride. He's an academic in Cambridge. He wrote this textbook. Not really a textbook. He wrote this introductory book to all aspiring applicants who want to study law actually at Cambridge.
Right.
Yeah. So it basically there's a very important section that teaches you how to think.
Right. As a law
student, yeah,
right.
more decisively,
right.
like picking up all the nuances and stuff like that. Yeah. So check out that book if you are interested in looking at applying to Cambridge, because that will definitely help, not just in your personal statement, but in your law test and in your interview, because the interview is basically a verbal version of the law test. Kind of.
Yeah, kind of. I see why. Yeah.
So once you hit the interview, again, it's about simulating the supervision experience. So pro tip is just don't cower away and say, "Can I have a minute to think?" and then answer the question. Just think aloud. Shoot what comes in your head, and then.
So show the thinking process.
Show the thinking process. Show the reasoning process. That's one.
It's not about the answer.
It's not about the answer. It's never about the answer, because chances are they don't have the answer.
Right.
Because maybe it's like a point of debate, for example. Sometimes there will be answers, but the key thing is to look. They want to look at your reasoning ability. Like, are you skipping steps, or are you making, making sense when you are reasoning from one step to the next? So just think a lot, and don't be afraid to make mistakes, because if you make mistakes, then they want to see how you recover from the mistakes.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So mistakes usually come from taking a too dogmatic stance. And then they attack your stance, and then you can't defend it. But then you still try to. That's a mistake, really.
So you shouldn't.
Yeah. You shouldn't. If you think it's defensible, then sure, go for it. But if you know they keep attacking you and you can't think of something else to rebut them, that
just
makes
don't
sense.
dig your own grave.
Don't dig your own grave. Don't shoot yourself in the foot. Just modulate yourself a bit, and then bring it back to something that they are looking for. But they've demonstrated that you don't need to be like really aware of the law in order to perform well in the interview. So if you go to the YouTube channel, Cambridge Law has a YouTube channel, the Law Faculty has a YouTube channel. They do a mock interview video that demonstrates how the interview goes.
Yeah.
And they make it a point to bring in a student who's learning classics in basically another subject to try and do the interview. So she was not a law student, but she went through the interview process quite well, I would say.
Nice.
Yeah. So yeah, no need for prior technical knowledge, but you do need to do a bit of reading just to get your headspace in the right, like tuned in the right direction. I would say.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's not. So when they say you don't need prior knowledge, you need prior experience, that's a bit of a misnomer, because they still expect some sense of sharpened common sense. Yeah. Sharpened thinking, legalistic thinking.
Right.
Yeah. And that's something that you can easily pick up with some of the resources that I mentioned, like Letters for a Law Student, by Nicholas McBride. Another one is a YouTube series called Justice by Michael Sandel.
Sounds really familiar.
Yeah, so he's a professor at Harvard Law, not Harvard Law. He's a professor at Harvard, and he teaches moral philosophy. But the way he breaks down moral philosophy reasoning is very similar to the way lawyers would think. Nice. So if you watch that, it might open your eyes to how we think, and then you can use that as a springboard to tackle the reasoning ability that you need to pick up.
Right.
And tackle the interview process a lot more easily. Yeah. So there is some strategy involved, and I think none of you would know about this.
Yeah. I don't think so.
If you went in blind.
Yeah.
So like the key is to just reach out to someone you know who had been through that, and then find out their tactics, find out their strategy. Feel free to reach out to me as well. You can
thanks so
LinkedIn
much.
or whatever, and then
slide into your DMs.
Slide my DMs. Yeah, you can connect with me, and I'll be more than happy to help. Yeah.
Nice. Thank you so much.
Yeah, and there are access schemes available.
Right.
There's one called Project Access, that basically pairs you with a mentor. From the university, in making your applications.
Like it's a formal thing.
It's a formal thing. There's a full organization that's like pairing mentors and mentees. Yeah. Some are a bit more structured than the others, but generally they do the same thing.
Like it's a free thing, or?
It's free. Yeah. It's free.
Okay.
So you can reach out. I think Project Access Singapore is still quite active. Yeah, there is a Singapore chapter for Project Access. Okay. So just take a look at that if you are trying to find someone to speak to, trying to find someone to mentor you. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Nice. Yeah, actually that's about it. I don't have any other questions.
Awesome.
Yeah, but I think that was really informative. Actually very valuable. I think if I was aspiring, Cambridge law student, like these tips are just like insane,
Yeah, that's something you only pick up by doing. Yeah. And I've walked through that treacherous journey, so I'm more than happy to just share.
That's great.
Let other applicants who are aspiring law students get through that same journey as well. Yeah.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, I guess the biggest takeaway is to know that it seems impossible, but it's not really. It's just about being strategic and knowing some of the things that you have to do in order to make your application stand out. Yeah. And make your interview stand out, make your law test stand out. Right. Yeah, and that's something that you can pick up. Especially if you have time during NS, or if you're freshly graduating from IB without that NS buffer time, find a mentor. Chances are they will help you and navigate your way throughout the law school. Yeah. Nice.
Yeah. Thanks so much for.
No problem.
Yeah, thanks so much.
No worries.
Yeah. So thanks so much to Ryan for coming down. Spending his time to really give these tips and insights into Cambridge law. Yeah, I definitely hope that it help the viewers who are thinking of applying and make it. Maybe they might, watch this interview and think like, hey, it's not that bad, or at least now they have an idea of what's going on.
Yeah, and feel free to, as you say, slide into my DMs on LinkedIn. Yeah, make it professional. And I'll be more than happy to follow up on any questions that you might have. Yeah.
Okay, so thanks so much, Ryan. If you like this episode, remember to like and subscribe, and comment down in the comment section below if you have any questions for Ryan. Yeah, so that's it for today's episode, and we'll see you in the next one.